Hello, Ryan here, aka Mac, and welcome. In this video, I break down the latest PU monthly report, letting you know all the progress on Star Citizen over the last month. As always, a huge thank you to all of my patrons and channel members. Thank you so much for the support. If you do enjoy my content, guys, and would like to support the channel even further from as little as $1 a month, all of the links are in the description below. So we have a lot to go through on February's report. It's quite a long one. Also, my techie friend has translated a lot of the AI and engine stuff, so we have that information available too. Kicking off with AI content, the team continued with the engineer behavior, helping to identify further low-level improvements that can be extended to other systems to achieve more complex behaviors, basically the same thing that they did with the bartender. They also started the downstream definitions of the usables, which are required for the engineer, hygiene and vendor shop extensions. Also, they have completed the implementations of the Tier 0 for the hawker, tourist and tour guide behavior. The AI features team made improvements to the communication system, which will allow them to drive randomization in a way that prevents possible repetition. So basically, in most games, you will notice 2, 3 or even 4 NPCs all doing the same animation at the same time. This will stop that from happening, which will make it feel far less gamey. The team also improved low-level patrol tech code to support the customization of input parameters on the subsumption logic for each patrol vertex. This will make it easier for the editor to call upon more data from the game itself, make the code a lot more structured, and it'll create automation within the AI instead of having the AI all scripted like in most games. For usables, the team extended the crafting dictionary used to understand which item the usable can produce to handle multiple tags, which will enable them to understand which operations can produce multiple objects in one interaction. For example, if an AI has a weapon with a scope on it, it knows it can remove that scope and place it onto another weapon if it so chooses to, which can be applicable to pretty much everything in the game, be that ships, tools and so on. The team also continued to improve the automatic testing setup of subsumption, which will make it a lot quicker of course, as well as making the testing just way faster. For character combat, improvements were made to the fire cadence skill calculation, which now uses skill formulas to ensure that different character abilities influence the actual ability to use the weapon. The AI rate of fire now takes into account the weapon proficiency to allow each character to have a different confidence on how many bullets to use, how quickly to press the trigger based on their traits. For example, are they confident, are they less confident, are they showing off, and on their actual ability with the specific weapon. All of this will make the AI feel far more realistic and less scripted, and it'll be very interesting to see just how diverse each NPC is when it comes to behaviors like this and more. It'll be great if they can actually be so different to one another that they don't feel like NPCs. The team are currently progressing on subcomponent targeting, extending the targeting system to better filter entity subtargets. This system will be shared across spaceships and characters, so for example, NPCs on foot could target a ship engine with a rocket launcher the same way that a ship could target the engine with a missile. The example here shows how once a thruster is blown off, the next one is just simply targeted. In this next example, we can see how the character replenish their ammunition. This test is a way to validate the setup of ammo crates and make sure that the character can correctly find the crate that can provide magazines or ammo for the weapons that they are using, and that they can then use the usable correctly. Moving on to AI tech, they supported character EVA movement. They plan to reuse and extend the 3D pathfinding that was implemented for spaceships for characters in 0G. So current work is to improve and extend the movement system to ensure that the right context is available when an EVA or ship control movement is requested. They're also planning to support automatic enters and exits of ships from EVA using the usable system as well. This is likely one of the main reasons for them to convert the EVA to the IFCS system, which is the same system that they use for ships, so that they can share systems like the 3D pathfinding. So the team are also extending the navigation system to give more context when in-game runtime regeneration requests are queued. The new system utilizes an extension that enables the team to better understand ship states. So this is more of a performance-based thing. When anything in-game changes, the AI may need to know about this, and the navigation mesh regeneration is used to tell them, but unfortunately it is a serious hit on performance as they update almost constantly. So similar to network culling, they will have these nav mesh updates only when they are needed and not all the time, which will then improve on performance. Finally, the team progressed with porting the Subsumption editor into the game editor to better connect the editing interface with the runtime code, which involved adding more advanced find functionality that globally scans and finds reference in Subsumption data. The animation team began the month shooting motion capture for several usables, including vending machines and the tourists. They also continued with facial animations for various mission givers and planned out what was needed to start exploring creatures. Looking forward to the day that we get to see creatures on Inside Star Citizen actually moving and animating. The character art team finalised new assets for refinery decks, with the majority now with QA for testing. Assets for Alpha 314 were added into the pipeline, including a new armour set and outfits for hospitals, which entered the modelling stage. Orison assets are nearing completion and will pass to tech art for skinning shortly. And lastly, they have finalised concepts for 2 armour sets planned for the second half of the year and several backpacks for 314. These backpacks will be very necessary with the implementation of physical inventories also in 314, and I'm looking forward to seeing what ranges of backpacks are available. So for the environment art team, the modular team completed the final art for the docking arm, finishing it to a high standard. Progress was made on the colonialism outposts, with white boxing signing off, and now work beginning in grey box. They are moving pretty quickly. For spacescaping, the team populated the recent added gas clouds with the new asteroid archetypes, and the skybox and starfield for the Pyro system were further developed as well. Finally, the landing team split their time between finalising the halls for an upcoming event, not sure what that is, and completing tasks for Orison, plus support was given to the new hacking feature prototype. So moving on to ship art, great progress they say was made on the Tumbrel Nova Tonk. Last month it was prepared for grey box review, and the release prep review gate was also completed for an upcoming new vehicle. Possibly the 400i, but no official word has been given yet. Put your guesses in the comments below. The Constellation Taurus reached the final art phase and is currently on track for a Q2 release. The finishing touches were also added to the new tints scheduled for release in 313. So we must be getting some new ship tints in 313, but for what ships, I have no idea. Support was given on many areas, which include docking collars, hull degradation, damage updates, signed distance field shields, and ship serial numbers and naming. The UK team continued with the Hercules variants, wrapping up the final art pass on the jump seats, remote turret seats, armory, and the A2's MOAR bomb release mechanism. It won't be long until that C2 is finally in our hands. The grey box for the Redeemer's cockpit and rear ramp section was completed, while the exterior, landing gear and turrets are all approaching the same point. The update pass on the Aegis Gladius is nearly finished, with only the LODs remaining before it can be signed off. This, I expect, is referring to the gold standard for the Gladius. There is a set of tasks on the progress tracker which say to implement, polish and optimize all the features required to bring the Gladius to the gold standard, which will of course transition to the PU as well. Finally, ship naming and hull degradation started in February, with several ships being ticked off, while the Javelin received a docking collar, entrance area and general lighting pass. So moving on to weapon art, the team closed out several tasks, starting with mounted guns. Work concluded on the MOAR bomb. The first pass on the Volt Parallax energy rifle was completed, and the standalone Greycat industrial cutting tool went through final art. So I'm really excited to see what these dedicated cutting tools will look like. This isn't the multi-tool attachment, this is a standalone tool, and eventually we will have these standalone tools for pretty much all professions as well. The weapon team also made a start on a size 7 Bearing ballistic Gatling gun and began exploring a mag stripping and loading device, while investigations were made into potential improvements to the weapon skin pipeline. It'll be very interesting to see this mag stripping and loading tool, and I guess if you don't have one on your person, you will have to do it all by hand. So moving on to the engine team, the physics team finished tier 1 of geometry instancing, which is the second of 3. For 0G traversal, engineering continued their work on the new passive Ragdoll mode. Issues with communication between the game code, animation system and physics systems were found and fixed, and alongside this, a new passive Ragdoll mode was added to skeleton physics. For cooperative locomotion, an inconsistency was fixed in the damping of engaged movables, plus additional support was given to the Planet Tech team, who were looking to improve vegetation touch blending on shorter asset varieties. So touch blending is, for example, when a player moves through plants or bushes, how those plants will move with our movement. So shorter assets could just mean shorter plants. Time was spent improving the wheeled vehicle physics, with the team managing to get the lateral Passaica tyre model to work, with further improving the longitudinal model. While they fully transitioned to this, a few improvements were provided for the legacy mode. So this is the new ground vehicle stuff that is coming later this year. I believe ground vehicles version 2 might be around November, but obviously they sound like they're just improving a little bit on what they can on what we have right now. Contact handling for tanks was improved, along with improvements made to the engine and gearbox code. I do wonder if they plan to create some form of functioning gearboxes for wheeled vehicles. For the renderer, work continued on the Gen 12 transition, and support for the remaining secondary vertex streams such as skinning attributes, velocity and secondary UV streams was added. The shading of volumetric clouds was completed, and the first draft is currently with the artists for prototyping and feedback. Hopefully we get to see that soon. In the meantime, more improvements to cloud shaping and shadowing were implemented, and a believable multi-scatter approximation was added. Cloud shaping, they say, now includes atmospheric-based ambient light, with ground reflections being added later, and to reduce aliasing when shaping clouds, proper texture LOD values are now computed at each ray march step, while shadow rays are jittered to reduce aliasing under motion. And finally, for clouds, research into the efficient skipping of empty space between clouds commenced. So, as with most of these current monthly reports, there is continuous development with clouds. I honestly think CIG will completely knock clouds out of the park. They obviously want them to look as good as possible, so here's hoping that we get to see them soon one day, as all this work does sound pretty impressive. So moving on to the character and weapon features team, the majority of the work was on mounted gun gameplay, allowing players to take control of a larger caliber weapon mounted on a 360-degree pivot, and this will offer an alternative to the rocket launcher or railgun for anti-vehicle combat, along with highly effective firepower against infantry. Several motion-captured idles and moving assets were blended to pose the gunner relative to the weapon based on current pitch and rotation speed. The team also looked at character avoidance, with focus on NPC to NPC avoidance without the influence of the player. This is where NPCs will cross paths with one another and how they avoid obstacles. This involves the NPC naturally twisting the body in the right direction and at the correct moment, along with more animation assets being captured to increase the response variation, with the overall result, they say, being more natural and realistic avoidance. For gameplay features, the team further developed the Mobileglass apps, continuing to implement the Reputation app, adding UI visuals into the building blocks canvases, while others iterated on the Asset Manager app, which is also planned to launch in Alpha 3.13. So it is great to hear that they are wanting to bring the Asset Manager app in for 3.13. This is the app that will allow us to track all of our owned items, knowing where they are and what state they're in. Getting it in for 3.13 is likely to help tune and bug fix it ready for when inventories are physical in 3.14. So it's very exciting to see that they are planning it for 3.13. Let's hope that they finish the work in time. This also could indicate a potential wipe for 3.13, so that we have everything that we should have, not everything that's been duplicated and so on, ready for when this app comes in. But it is still anyone's guess as to whether they will wipe. At the very least, I would expect to wipe for 3.14 though. So do be prepared for a potential wipe sometime this year, most likely early than late. The teams began to plan for the upcoming cargo refactor, which aims to physicalize items within cargo grids. This requires the team to reevaluate how they deal with volatile cargo, mining, refining, and several other intertwined systems. The refactor will also see the commodity kiosk converted to building blocks and tie into the asset manager. I'm really looking forward to this conversion. Whether it will be done for 3.13, I doubt it, but most likely wanted for 3.14 at the earliest. Also, converting the commodity kiosks into building blocks will hopefully help to alleviate any bugs with the kiosks that we have right now. They also focused on polishing and bug fixing the refinement gameplay, correcting various flaws, clunkiness and exploits, and generally making it run smoother. They're currently implementing mining components that fit into the same slots as the mining consumables, however they are not consumed in one active action and act as a subcomponent for the mining laser, allowing players to mix and match components with consumables as we need and see fit. Now they also added a handful of smaller features to the mining UI that didn't make it in for 3.12, including a range indicator and animations on the scanned information. This is what we recently saw on Inside Star Citizen. So for the mission and live content features team, they completed varying tasks including polishing new and upcoming missions, prototyping spawn closets, and developing harvestables. The code has enhanced the bounty system so that bounties outside of monitored zones will inadvertently or purposely give away their location through a variety of actions, which they didn't specify here unfortunately. The aim, they say, is to give bounty hunters a chance to track bounties in unmonitored zones and ensure that bounties always feel like they are on the run. Very happy to hear that this system is being more involving. I really want to get into bounty hunting, but I'd like more of that cat and mouse gameplay than what we have right now. Hopefully this is what they're talking about here, giving us more ways of actually tracking the bounty. So a new system was worked on to allow the devs to hijack advertising screens in locations throughout the PU to show breaking news or safety alerts. This sounds like it could be used for upcoming events, announcing it in-game like an emergency news broadcast, which will be very cool to see. The team are also developing a security system that will allow them to remove the automatic crime stats given by trespassing zones. Currently, in order for the station defences or security to attack a player, they must be given a crime stat for trespassing. Now this is not the intention, and the new system will allow players to enter a trespass zone, and as long as they remain undetected, they will not receive a crime stat. In the future, this will allow them to have security instruct the player to leave, otherwise they will be arrested or ultimately killed, and both security and automated defences will engage players without the need of a crime stat. This, I think, could be great when there are more missions at locations with trespass zones, maybe requiring us to go stealth and then approach on foot rather than flying in. The vehicle feature team's focus was docking, with Merlin Constellation docking being polished and ship-to-station docking nearing completion. The team also added docking filter tags to let players allow or block certain ships from docking at specific ports on their ships, and now players are informed about various things during the docking process, including when docking clamps disengage. It is going to be so cool going through the docking process. I really hope that it feels like it does in the movies. They also developed a match velocity mode to help ships docking to a movable vehicle, which is extremely difficult otherwise. So this is likely relating to the Merlin and Constellation, but also ship-to-ship docking as well eventually when that gets implemented. And it does sound as though ship-to-ship docking is coming along faster than we may think, now that we have ship-to-station and the Merlin Constellation working. Various networking issues with station docking were discovered and resolved, and there are a few things to be finished, including comms calling stations for docking permission and spawning ships at docking collars, but station docking is making great progress. Other things worked on last month included the rework of missile flight dynamics, with the team saying, "We have the missile guidance phases that adjust and change the behaviour of the missiles as it progresses through its flight to its target. This allows us really fine control over the missile and ensures that it's best able to reach the target as quickly as possible." They also improved thruster dust visual effects, which will soon be per thruster and far more dynamic than before. For example, as a VTOL thruster rotates, dust will correctly follow the wind volumes and match the physics forces associated with the thruster's wind blast. Now this will look amazing. Not only just realistic dust kicking up as ships come into land, but how cool will it be to see a ship coming into land with a damaged VTOL engine, kicking up the dust as it coughs and splutters. I'm so happy that they are taking this direction. It is going to look so immersive. So for the graphics team, their focus was on two main areas. Number one was automated testing, and the other was the Gen 12 renderer. For automated testing, they've made various improvements to the automated testing for better reliability, which is crucial as major changes are rolled out to ensure graphics don't break anything implemented by the other teams. For the Gen 12 renderer, work continued to reach parity with the old shader code path so that it can be enabled by default, and testing of the Vulkan backend was rolled out further across the team to get wider visibility on this new API, and finally, to aid in debugging, the font rendering system was ported to Gen 12. Very happy to hear that testing of the Vulkan backend was rolled out. It must be in its final stages now, just getting all the teams more accustomed with it, which is exciting to hear. So for lighting, last month the team built prototypes for interactive lighting elements in player hubs. The aim was to test several interaction systems to see how they work with the existing lighting workflows. Results were promising, they say, and the team hopes to improve and implement them in the future. The team also helped to set up the basic system-wide settings for Pyro, which involved laying out intensity values for the Pyro star, which affects how bright all the planets and locations will appear. Now, these settings are then also applied to all construction levels for the planets and moons, so that they can have their atmospheric settings tweaked under the correct brightness. Pyro is going to be quite a contrast to the Stanton system. And finally, the team provided lighting support for Orison with focus on habitation rooms, the spaceport interior and the Voyager bar, plus a lighting pass was done on the new larger cave entrances along with ship-to-station docking arms. We actually saw this cave entrance lighting on Inside Star Citizen, and these caves are looking so cool. So for narrative, as new locations and environments are developed, the narrative team worked with other teams to help define the language of the science and environmental storytelling to bring another dimension of character to the spaces. The team continued to develop upcoming content, and they also organised another voiceover recording session to capture characters for several future landing zones and events. Narrative worked with UI and design on the next steps to transition the vast amount of fictional dispatches into the game. For example, they say enabling players to receive news updates about events in the system or listen to short stories during long flights. Now this sounds amazing. Playing one of those many lore featurettes or short stories posted in the jump points or on the website in your ship while travelling around will be a big welcome in my book. I've pretty much read all of them multiple times in some cases, but having them playing in the background in-game will be great, especially when we get quantum-sensitive cargo and we can't actually quantum travel, we have to fly from one location to the next. So for the player relations team, they continued to recruit and add to the Wilmslow team. They also continued to triage bugs for 3.12 and begun preparing for 3.13 and various events beginning in spring. I do wonder what these events are. Could it be this Nine Tails lockdown or even something else? We will have to wait and see. The props team progressed with their first pass on Orison, including furniture and some larger hero assets. Work began on interactable props for homesteads, such as these solar panels and battery packs which we saw recently, while geometry templates were completed for a movable gurney and beds in the hospital locations. That'll be quite fun, especially when we have ships like the Endeavour, for example. Maybe being able to use the push and pull system and move these patients around on gurneys would be quite exciting. For QA, they have been testing content for Alpha 3.13 in prep for the Evo testing, including ship-to-ship docking, it says. They must have meant ship-to-station docking or the Constellation Merlin docking, new harvestables, updates to medpens and force reactions. For the Systemic Services and Tools team, they continued developing tools to allow the backend to control the flow of gameplay, which involved integrating high-speed positional information for AI spawned in the game to better track how content is deployed and used throughout the PTU. Work was also finished that will allow the team to control, see and modify critical services, which will ultimately allow for direct intervention and prepare for the integration of quantum, with the team saying our resources are being channeled into a public presentation we plan to give soon, so stay tuned for an update from Tony Zurevec in the near future. This cannot come soon enough. So the tech animation team cleaned up assets as a core tech change to the in-engine animation pipeline invalidated a large number of them. Development of the in-house animation graph toolset continued, which is going through early user testing to collect feedback and bugs for the next phase of development. Turbulent joined forces with several other teams to improve the performance of VoIP and FOIP, which involved implementing a new logging system, adding an improved debug tool, and making minor code centralization. I really hope that these changes will make VoIP more consistent. I want to use VoIP solely over Discord for game events with my org, and it's just not stable enough yet, so any improvements will be good. They're also coordinating with developers working on the launcher, and directly in-engine, Turbulent delivered their first milestone in the server meshing project. A portion of the team also shifted to server meshing project deliveries, with more to be added as the project progresses. Very happy to hear that they are putting more resources on server meshing. That is one of the big focuses this year. Finally, Turbulent also delivered additional features for the reputation system to give players the ability to set preferences, get notified when their rep changes, and visualize their reputation history. This reputation app will be such a big help in 3.13. Very much looking forward to that. So the vehicle tech team made improvements to the ground vehicle system to support the release of the Nova Tonk. This involved expanding the turreted targeting and weapon usage and implementing realistic tread motion and tread-based vehicle operation. Further improvements were made to the radar and scanning systems, which will be used both on foot and within vehicles. The ping system was the main focal point throughout February, and to increase the player interaction with the environment, improvements to the underlying interaction system began, for example, allowing players to press a button or turn a dial within a cockpit to trigger contextual actions. Now, I'm really looking forward to this new radar and scanning system. I do hope that we see more exploration missions come with the implementation in 3.14, but either way, the improvements will help drive the quality of life. So finally, we have visual effects. They continued their pre-production work on vehicle radar and ping effects. They also further developed planetary effects for several locations in the Pyro system, along with impact effects for a variety of new harvestables. Not quite sure what these harvestable impact effects are. Do let me know what you think. Could it be if you pick a certain plant, maybe in the Pyro system, it explodes to some degree or squirts out something as a protection? We'll have to wait and see. A new visual effects profiling tool was created, giving the team clearer views of important performance-related information in graph format, and work continued on gas cloud interior effects, including debris that safely collides with ship hulls. Finally, they continued their work on the Hercules Starlifter and another upcoming vehicle, while rollout of signed distance field shield impact effects continued. Anyway, there you have it. That is the latest PU monthly report. A really long one. I apologise for the length of this video, but the information is all there, so it needs to come out. Lots of incredible work going on, especially in clouds, and it's great to hear about all the work on server meshing as well. Big thank you to my techie friend for helping me to explain a lot of the technical side of this report. It is very much appreciated. But with that said, if you do enjoy my videos and find them useful, please consider hitting that subscribe button. We will be giving away a ship around the 40,000 subscriber mark. What that ship will be, I don't know. But if you want to be notified when my videos go live, be sure to tick that notification bell. And if you can do the channel a big favour and hit that like button, I would appreciate it. Also, if you want to talk more about Star Citizen, be sure to follow me over on twitch.tv/supermacbrothers. Again, a big thank you to my patrons and channel members. Cannot do this without you guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.